This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and this is our full Samsung Galaxy S5 review. For those of you who like things short and sweet, we have a 9-minute quick look video review. This is for those of you who want to know everything about the phone, and we'll have some time code in the information section below the video so you can jump to the sections that you want also. Samsung Galaxy S5 is obviously Samsung's latest flagship smartphone for 2014 in the normal size range. Obviously, it's not the Note, it's not a phablet, it's not giant. It competes with the HTC One M8, the iPhone 5S, the Nokia Lumia Icon, and all sorts of other flagships, and it brings some subtle but enjoyable improvements from the Samsung Galaxy S4, and we're going to look at it now. So here it is, the Samsung Galaxy S5, probably the most awaited phone of the year from Samsung, even more so probably than the Note series, because that's a phablet, it's bigger, fewer people buy it. I'm not saying it's not a great phone, just by the numbers, more people go with this kind of 5-inch size phone. Speaking of which, it is a 5.1-inch phone, just a little bit bigger than the 5-inch Samsung Galaxy S4 in terms of screen size. Full HD 1920 by 1080 resolution. It's a beautiful screen, very colorful. Samsung does a great job with the displays. Now, some of you are going to get picky about the sub-pixels and say, oh, it's diamond sub-pixels, fewer sub-pixels per inch. Guess what? It's 432 ppi. It's really sharp. Nobody's going to be discerning any pixels here with the naked eye. If you got a microscope out, maybe you got a different story, but really lovely. Very nice color saturations. You know, Samsung tends to oversaturate, so you pro photographers and graphic artist type might actually find that annoying. There is one setting you can choose. There are several color profiles you can use with this guy that is more natural, or you can leave it at the default adaptive, where it's going to look at whatever's on screen at a given time and try to adapt the display for the best possible looking, well, experience. Colors, contrast, brightness, that kind of thing. Still have auto brightness on this. The good news is one of the failings of Super AMOLED displays is, while they're great at getting really dark inky blacks like no other display can, they're not so good at the light tones. So Samsung actually upped the brightness to 500 nits, which is a lot for Super AMOLED. That is perfect for outdoor viewing. Now, to get the full maximum brightness experience, you have to enable auto brightness. And the bad news is Samsung still goes with a kind of dim auto brightness setting. So for indoor use, I find it really way too dark. So that means if you disable auto brightness and you go outside, then you might have trouble seeing your phone until you actually slide the brightness slider manually or turn auto brightness on. Oh well. Inside we have the Snapdragon 801, that's Qualcomm's latest generation smartphone CPU. Minor improvements over the Snapdragon 800 quad-core CPU we've seen in most recent flagships. Both this and the HTC M8, by the way, are running on the 801. It's sort of like the Intel Haswell story, where the CPU really, performance didn't improve that much. Graphics performance did improve, and particularly battery life. The same thing is true here. The Adreno 330 is clocked a little bit higher. You have DDR3 RAM, which really benefits the graphics subsystem on this. You're going to see somewhat better graphics performance and a lot better battery life. The phone has 16 gigs of internal storage, and oh, happy day, this is Samsung, so we have a micro SD card slot. It is under the back cover here, so you do have to take off the back cover if you want to access it. And you do that by yanking. There's a little pry point right there. There's our 2800 milliamp battery, and this is a stacked card slot. On the bottom is the micro SIM card, and you do have to remove the battery to access that, which is fine because, well, you don't usually take your SIM card out. And up top is the micro SD card slot, and you can see we have a 32 gig in here right now. It's SDXC compatible, and you do not have to remove the battery to take the card in and out. And looking at the back cover, notice it looks a little different than your average back cover. There's a rubber gasket over here because the phone is actually water resistant. So be careful if you're buying third-party backs from no-name companies off eBay, because it may not actually have the proper rubber gasket to maintain that water-resistant feature. But anyway, it's still thin plastic, yes, but this is a sufficient seal that you can actually dunk the phone into water up to 1 meter deep for 30 minutes. Now, that doesn't mean that you can pour whiskey sours on top of it. That's sticky, nasty, gummy stuff, and leave it there for half an hour. Don't do that. Anything that's corrosive, anything that's super sticky, I would suggest rinsing off with some fresh, clear water. And the neat thing is, once this cover is on securely in place, and every time you boot up the phone, it's going to remind you to make sure that you've got it snapped on all around tightly, so you do have that waterproof feature, you can actually rinse this off, and we'll dunk it in some water and show you. Alright, so now we're going to test out the water thing, and we're going to give it a little sprinkly bath. Here it is. It's dirty. I think I need to wash that off. What do you think? Now, it's going to get a little confused. The screen does not work so well when it's wet, but it's kind of okay. Now, if it was underwater, it wouldn't work as well. So this is not for underwater photography. The same thing was true for the Galaxy S4 Active. That was a difficult thing, but for you tidy people, look, you can actually wash your phone in the sink. The back is faux leather once again, but notice it's a stippled leather kind of look now instead of the leather grain that Samsung had been using on the Note 3 and some of the Note tablets recently and the Pro tablets. It's pretty nice looking in person, and it feels pretty nice too. It's grippy. It feels sort of organic for something that actually isn't. It's available in charcoal black, or what they call shimmering white, which is white with a very, very, very slight iridescence. Now, Samsung did show off a gold model. That's the one that looks kind of like more like somebody who's had a bronzed on tan or like a Band-Aid. And there's a really zingy electric blue, but so far no carriers are offering that. It's just the black or the white. Speaker is right down here on the back. Sorry, no stereo front-facing speakers like you get on the HTC One M8. And as we look down here on the bottom, because of the water resistance and also dust resistance, by the way, you beach bunnies, keep that in mind, we have a port door right here. And notice that's a long port. That's USB 3.0 micro style, just like the Note 3 again and the Note Pro tablet. Now this is backward compatible with 2.0. See the fatter of this kind of divided slot? You can plug your 2.0 cable or accessories in here if you want to. Does support Qualcomm's latest fast charging, so this thing charges very, very fast. And you can get USB 3.0 transfer speeds, but when you plug it in using the USB 3.0 cable that is included, it's going to ask you every time if you want to use it. And USB 3.0 can actually interfere with the wireless radio, so that's why it just leaves it on for like 4 minutes at a time. On the side, we have glorious faux chrome plastic yet again. It would be nice if they actually use real metal. It doesn't really look very convincing, that fake chrome. Their fake aluminum looks better. Anyway, the power button's right here. Most people prefer that for one-handed use because you can hold it like that. You don't have to reach around the top and search, anything like that. Up top, we have our 3.5 millimeter headphone jack. IR port, because yes, it has Samsung Watch on and the IR Blaster TV AV remote controller for all your home theater gear. Volume rocker on this side. 8.1 millimeters, so still a very thin phone. That's something that's really laudable in a phone that has a removable back and a removable battery. So how about the fingerprint scanner? One of the two major new features, and well, you can use it to unlock the phone. Of course, you can still do things like the usual password, that sort of thing if you want to enter it, and you're going to have to use a backup password just in case your fingerprint's no longer recognized. God forbid you have a finger-related accident, that sort of thing. And it has to be alphanumeric. It's not like the iPhone where you can just use a 4-digit numerical passcode. You have to have a letter and a number. So if you want to unlock the phone, you see it gives you a little visual there right on the screen where you're supposed to line up your finger and swipe it over the home screen button. And it's that easy. It actually works quite well. I know some people have picked on saying it's not so great. It's pretty easy. It's a fairly large sensor. This isn't like the old laptop scanners, fingerprint scanners, or even the Motorola Atrix, which also really did use the old-fashioned laptop slit-style scanner. Never really worked very well. It was where you couldn't see it. This is pretty seamless. I've enjoyed the feature on the iPhone 5S a lot. I enjoyed it equally well here. Now, the only thing is really it's a two-handed operation. Obviously, you need to do something like that. It tells you, it wants you visually on the screen to go up and down like that. You can try to cheat and teach it, say, sideways. Say you just want to do a one-handed unlock and swipe sideways. As you're training your fingerprint, it's going to figure out what you're trying to do there. It's going to say, hey, use your finger up and down, don't do it sideways. So you can try to get away with it and continue scanning it by going like this, but it's not going to be as accurate or work as well. So as a two-handed solution, it works very reliably. It's great. As a one-handed solution, not so much. And inside we have Android 4.4 KitKat, which is the latest, greatest version of the operating system, and Samsung's TouchWiz software. You know, Samsung and TouchWiz, we still have that kind of Hello Kitty look to the icons and lots of added software. Some new things here we'll talk about, some old things that have been updated as well. And that's what our application launcher looks like. It keeps the wallpaper on the background. You can customize these guys here, drag them in and out. A few things that Samsung really should just leave well enough alone. For example, if you want to create a folder in latest versions of Android, you just drag one icon on top of another and automatically creates a folder. With TouchWiz, you still have to press and hold on the screen and select Create Folder and then drag things in the folder after you name it. Actually adds more steps. Another thing I'm not so fond of is their new settings here. Now, the stuff up top, that's just fine. Notice the new minimalist flat UI icons, kind of like Samsung's Tizen OS, and they brought that into settings. Now, Android, you can complain about some things on Android UI, but the settings pane is very intuitive, and Samsung just likes to mess with it. First it was the 4-pane approach because they added so many extra settings, and I don't know. Now we have oodles and oodles. It just goes on and on. My God. Got to be at least 50 settings right here, one by one. The icons will not be familiar to you. You'll have to learn those. I mean, it's not the end of the world, but why they did this, I'm not really sure. But obviously we have settings for everything that you could possibly want here. And all of Samsung's old features that you know and love or maybe don't love, like the multitasking is still here. The feature that I love, the Smart Stay, where it uses the front camera, keeps an eye on you, won't turn off the screen if you're reading and not reading quick enough, and the screen would otherwise time out. So those good things are here as well. You can still use the front and back cameras when shooting video, for example, so all that stuff's there. Galaxy Gifts, Galaxy Essentials, that leads to a little bit more discussion on TouchWiz and the added apps. There's a lot of duplication here, which is probably going to be a little hard for newbies. You got the built-in Google applications, like essentially Gallery, now called Photos, for photo and video, and the music player, and Samsung throws their own in there too. And they have their own app stores, so Galaxy Gifts really is just some applications that they're suggesting that you should download, for example. Here we have a new edition, GeoNews. According to the battery monitor, it's really using more battery than anything else on the phone, so I'm about ready to disable it right now. Your region is okay. So this is going to tell me about wildfire and earthquakes. Now, here in the Dallas area, we really don't have serious earthquakes. We do have things like tornadoes. It's not going to tell me if a tornado is about to come and sweep down in a take me away anti-M style, you know, that sort of thing. There it is. Why is it here? I couldn't tell you. We do have S-Health. As ever, this keeps growing up, and it's not really very bad. It's got a pedometer. It'll track your steps. You can track your diet, your nutrition, all sorts of stuff like that. And then there's a new feature. The flash on the back of the camera is not just a nice little flash. It's a heart rate monitor as well. Weren't you dying to have that in your phone? I don't know about you, but, you know, I'm pretty well versed in how to put 2 fingers to my throat and feel my pulse on my throat if I need to do that. But for those of you who want to do that, but don't care about your blood pressure, anything else that, say, a Fitbit or maybe Samsung's new Fit Bands would give you, you can put your finger over here and it will read your pulse. Now, some people have said it's not too accurate. I have actually found to be pretty accurate, and let's give it a try now. Now, first we have to get out of our pedometer screen here, and who the heck is James Lee? I don't know why it says I am James Lee. And choose heart rate. And now it gives you instructions where to put your finger, and I will do that. And we got a reading that is pretty much similar to the first. It's been pretty consistent, to be honest, and we can check it. I can then go exercise a little bit on an exercycle and see what it says then. And now I'm here on my trusty exercise bike. Got my heart rate up, been doing this for a while at a pretty good resistance, and I'm going to try my Samsung Galaxy again to see what it says my heart rate's at now. And here it is. It says 117, which sounds right to me, and my bike's pulse monitor says 115, so they're pretty close together. And Samsung's My Magazine app feature is here. We've seen that again on some of the Note tablets and the Note phone. Swipe to the side, sort of like Blink Feed. Your leftmost screen is a presentation of the news, and this is somewhat customizable, not wildly. You can put your social networks on here, your Twitter, your Facebook, some news sources that they've pre-selected for you. And if you don't like it, you can actually turn it off in settings. When you press the home key, it won't be your default home key, though. Your main home screen will be with the clock weather kind of thing going on over here. As you'd expect, we have a full suite of Google applications on board, so everything's good there. You got your Gmail, your YouTube player, your Google+, all that sort of stuff. Samsung's apps, not everything is preloaded. You can download them if you want, and that's in part because Google was saying, hey, we want our app stores to be featured, not your app stores to be featured, and so on, and your Music Hub and Video Hub and all that sort of thing. So you can still download those additional Samsung applications if you want, including Samsung Watch On, which is your combined TV grid and AV remote control. That one's a download. It's not pre-installed. You also get S-Note on here, which makes more sense, really, if you're using this on a Note phone, because that has the pen. And you get the welcome screen the first time around. Same thing that we saw on the Note phone. And you can choose from all these different templates, and you can either type in here or you can write in here with your finger and sync to Evernote or to a Samsung account, as you can see. And we also get Polaris Office 5 here. Sorry, no Handcom Office like we saw on the Note Pro and Tab Pro tablets, but then again, those are very tablet and almost desktop-like in their UI. They really wouldn't make much sense on something like a phone right here, but you can do your MS Office work here on the phone itself. And of course, you can have carrier applications. This is the T-Mobile unit, so we have T-Mobile TV and so on. Preload T-Mobile My Account. It's going to depend on your carrier. One good thing about the T-Mobile version is you actually get the download booster feature. That was something that Samsung made a big deal about, and then most U.S. carriers have whacked it. AT&T, Verizon, and Sprint, no, but here we still have that on our T-Mobile version. What is that? That can combine your Wi-Fi and your LTE 4G for even faster downloads. Now, you got to have a real serious need for speed if you need that much speed. Sometimes it can make sense. You're at Starbucks where they have really lame Wi-Fi and you want to get more speed going. But other than that, I don't know how many people are going to use this if they have decent home and work Wi-Fi, for example, or otherwise decent LTE coverage. Keep in mind, if you turn that feature on, those of you who are actually lucky enough to have it, that you will use more mobile data. So keep an eye on your mobile data bucket to make sure you're not burning through it more quickly. That's probably why the other carriers disabled it, because they were just terrified they were going to get bazillions of customer service calls saying, why is my data plan maxed out already, only a week into use? We also have a handy data usage applet right over here, so you can keep track of just how much data you are burning through. So how about the phone? It is a phone after all. Here's the phone UI, pretty much unchanged from previous recent Samsung smartphones. Keypad, call logs, your favorites, all your contacts available right there. Nice big easy dialer. They brought the one-handed phone feature over from the Note phones, even though this is not such a big phone really, but just in case, and that will shift the dialer over to make it a little bit easier to use it with one hand if you need to do that. Data speeds have been quite good. We expect nothing less from a phone that has good 4G LTE. And here is some recent speed tests that we just did, which is pretty much par for the course for T-Mobile in our Dallas Metroplex area. So how about CPU speed? Given the fact that this has a nice speedy quad-core Snapdragon 801 CPU clocked at 2.5 gigahertz, technically really 2.46 gigahertz. Let's see how it did on some tests. Now, Samsung says they're no longer gaming benchmarks, so we will see how they did. And there's our score on 3D Mark on the unlimited Ice Storm test, 18,329. That's quite good. On Antutu, we got a very good 35,357. Now, how about other benchmark tests? We're not going to make you look at every single screen. Quadrant, 23,643, also a very good number. Geekbench 3, 974 single core, 2954 for multi-core test. For SunSpider, the JavaScript test, 398, that's using the built-in WebKit web browser rather than Chrome. The WebKit web browser, the one that's usually called Internet or Web, is usually quicker for SunSpider, but that's an excellent number. That's quite a bit faster than the HTC One M8. And lastly, Graphics Bench 3, the T-Rex test, 27.5 frames per second on and off screen. Since off screen measures at 1920 by 1080, which is the screen resolution, those numbers will be the same. And now for size comparison, here we have the HTC One M8. Here we have the Samsung Galaxy S5, and this is the iPhone 5S. So obviously the iPhone with its smaller screen is going to be the much smaller phone. You get the idea. For those of you who like tiny phones, that is going to be your favorite choice. And now with the HTC M8, which is a taller phone by a little bit thanks to those boom sound speakers top and bottom. It's also slightly thicker. It's going to be a little bit heavier because it has a metal casing, and that's the more interesting thing to compare the backs on these. We have the faux leather back, and we have the stainless steel look, which is actually aluminum here, so you get the idea. And we'll have a smackdown separately between these phones, so hold on for that. So how about the cameras? First we're going to check out the 2 megapixel front camera. 2 megapixel, well, it's not as impressive as the 5 megapixel front camera on the HTC One M8. Still, you can see from right here, this is very clear and very nice. It does full HD video, so you're going to have pretty pleasant Skype conversations here. You won't look like a blocky mess. Now let's switch to the rear camera. And by the way, by default, it uses Beauty Shot for the front cameras. Hides your pimples, your wrinkles, whatever else. So we've got our William statue over here, and we're focusing actually very close. It's pretty impressive. Now this is a 16 megapixel camera, so the resolution has increased, as you would expect with most camera phones. Generation to generation it does. But also it uses both phase detection and contrast detection for autofocus. Phase detection is more sophisticated, unusual. You usually see that in higher-end digital SLR cameras. So it's pretty quick to focus. Samsung brags about that. And in fact, as we move it around, even staying close, getting farther away, it's doing a perfectly good job. As ever with Samsung phones, there are plenty of things you can do here. We've got normal shortcut to the gallery over here. We have modes, so you got beauty face, auto, shot, and more, so you can do the capture, like moving figure across the screen. Panorama mode, virtual blur, which is, you know, the thing now is to add a background blur after the fact. Dual camera mode, we still have that, front and back cameras simultaneously. And we will just stick with auto mode there, but wait, there's plenty more. We have real-time HDR, which is pretty neat. Tap that and you can see the difference, so you can decide whether you want an HDR photo or not. In the case of this particular picture, it's not going to make that much of a difference. And here we have a whole lot more settings. We have picture stabilization turned on. Sadly, this is not optical image stabilization. That's something I would really love to have for video. Don't need it much for photos, but the video that we shot tends to be a little bit bouncy jerky with software stabilization only. Notice the video size here. We can go up to full 4K video recording, or UHD. Yes, it will look sharper. It will also show off the less than stellar parts of the camera too. This is still a camera phone. You're not going to get amazing 4K footage like you would from a Panasonic GH4 camera. So for example, I noticed with video, if you're moving and panning along, you get a lot of motion noise going on. It's going to be even more apparent with UHD. So I would say use that more for things that you're focusing on at infinity at a far distance, or for things that are staying still. We've got burst shot mode here. You can shoot in 16:9 or 4:3 aspect ratio, face detection, you name it, it's all here. But in the end, probably most people are just going to launch the camera and hit the shutter button. And we're saving to an SD card right now, and that is plenty quick. And there's our picture of William. And another picture of William. And another picture of William. Now here's some 4K video. Let's see how that looks. And again, you see you have a choice between 2 different video players there. It's nice and it's sharp and it's colorful. It's a little hard to tell, but trust me, there's some motion blur and breakup of the picture, but as soon as you get still on something, it's really sharp and clear and very colorful. Definitely an improvement over the last generation Samsung Galaxy S4 camera, which was not a bad camera by any means. This is one of the nicer camera phones that's on the market. No, it's not a Lumia 1020, but it holds its own against something like the iPhone 5S, certainly. And just to revisit the back one more time, notice that it doesn't look disgusting. I've been handling the phone a lot. This does not show fingerprints. The matte surface is a definite improvement in that respect. Other features of the phone are dual-band Wi-Fi 802.11ac. It has Bluetooth 4.0, the usual GPS with GLONASS, and it has NFC. Mobile payment systems, that's really going to depend on your country and your carrier. For a lot of our carriers now, it's ISIS mobile payments. For T-Mobile, Verizon, and AT&T. For Sprint, they're still going to go with Google Wallet. So again, that's going to depend. So how about speaker volume from that rear speaker? Yeah, we're about 3/4 volume. Not too bad. Again, it's not HTC Boom Sound stereo speakers, but it's certainly adequate. Better than my Sony Xperia Z1S, which is kind of a quiet phone. Battery life. If there's one thing I think everybody would love to see improved on smartphones is they only get iteratively better, not really revolutionarily better, it would be battery life. And what helps is this has a 2800 milliamp battery inside. That's a pretty large capacity battery, especially for a phone this thin and in this size range. Combine that with the Snapdragon 801 CPU that's very powerful, and you have very good battery life here. I've been managing about up to 8 hours of screen on time. That's actual use time, screen on time, doing things in terms of actual normal daily use, about a day and a half on a charge. Usually I just get a day on a charge with last generation smartphones, so that's an improvement. And that's in a mix of doing email, social networking, streaming a 45-minute episode of Netflix on this, playing some music, playing games for about a half an hour, making some phone calls, that sort of thing. If you're going to be using the GPS all the time, if you're going to be playing Real Racing 3 for hours on end, of course, you're going to get shorter run times there, but with average use, very good, very promising, and right up there with the HTC One M8, again, running on the same platform with a pretty large battery, too. And we've got a shortcut to download Kids Mode for those of you who like to give your phone to your kid to play with, and I know a lot of people do, so you can sandbox them and make sure they're not looking at the things they shouldn't be looking at. Samsung also does some interesting things with the operating system in terms of privacy. Say you have a folder of naked selfies. I'm not saying you do, but you just might. Well, you can actually mark those as private, so people who are perusing through your photo gallery will not see those precious moments right there. Also, Samsung has hacked Android to put apps to SD card if you want to. Any application that's installed, you can look at it and you can see in settings there's going to be an option to actually move that application to the SD card. So we've gone into the apps section of settings right here, and we're looking at Riptide GP2, a game which, you know, it's not that big as games go, but still you might want to move it. So there it is, the move to SD card option. This doesn't work with the built-in applications, obviously, in ROM, and it may not work with some apps that touch the system, but it should work for most other applications. So all in all, I haven't always been so bullish on Samsung Galaxy S phones. Sometimes there's just way too much gimmicky software in here, heavy-handed TouchWiz, the uninspired plastic look. Now, Samsung's trying to clean up their act with TouchWiz, and there's still some schizophrenic moments, redundant sort of applications, and the new setting screen that I just don't get. But overall, TouchWiz has not slowed down this phone. None of that lag, none of that bogging going on. And, you know, there's hundreds of millions of people out there using Samsung TouchWiz phones, and you're used to that UI. You're going to like it. There are worse things in the world. I don't mind it. Now, for those of you who really like the clean experience, there are Google Play Edition devices, HTC devices that have a cleaner Android version, but that is what it is. It's not really bothering me too much. The looks are improved, certainly. The fingerprint scanner, I actually enjoy that. That's a very useful addition because I always feel like I should password protect my phone, but I hate it when it slows me down. With this fingerprint scanner, as long as you're okay with the two-handed approach, it's just as quick as swiping it to unlock it. That works really well. The cameras are very good on this too. So overall, I have to say, this is a very, very nice Android phone. Now, for those of you who have Samsung Galaxy S4, there may not be enough here, obviously, for you to upgrade, especially for those of you who are still doing the 2-year contract model where you're not up for a subsidized upgrade. Yes, the screen's a little bit brighter than ever. It's a little bit faster. Certainly, the camera's better. You get the new fingerprint scanner. I don't think anybody's going to kill for the heart rate monitor, but not so much. But if you're a Galaxy S3 owner, then you are ready for an upgrade. And if you're happy with the Samsung experience that you've had, you're used to the TouchWiz UI, you enjoy that, then this is definitely a very solid upgrade. And for those of you who are thinking about the Galaxy S4 Active for being dust-proof and water-resistant as well, guess what? This one does it without being quite as bulky and with a better screen on it too, and obviously the latest hardware inside. So if you're looking at it from that perspective, I would pick the Galaxy S5. So that's the Samsung Galaxy S5. As I said, it's going to be available on every major and many minor carriers as well. The usual $199 with contract price, around $650-ish if you're going to buy it off contract. Is it a nice smartphone? Yes, it is. Is it one of the nicest Android smartphones? Yes, it is. You have to be okay with TouchWiz and a whole lot of software features, but I know many of you actually enjoy that a lot. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to visit our website for the full written review, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel.